In Palestine, the Israeli siege on the Gaza Strip continues with rising numbers of dead and wounded. In Sudan, the war started last year. It is estimated to result in around 200,000 children dead of malnutrition. And Venezuela starts on Thursday the inscription of the candidacies for the presidential elections to be held on July 28, 2024. Hello and welcome to From the South. I am Irma Shelton, and from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. On Thursday in Palestine, in the framework of 177 days of Zionist attacks, dozens of Palestinians were killed and injured by the Israeli occupation troops, mostly women and children. Precisely for the fourth consecutive days, the occupation forces carry out a fierce operation in the Al-Rimal neighborhood and inside the Al-Shifa medical complex. In this sense, the United Nations Secretary General expressed his concern for the severe situation and reiterated that attacking hospitals is a war crime. In the meantime, health authorities confirmed more than 100,000 Palestinian victims among the total number of dead and wounded. In the meantime, Herzi Halevi, chief of the General Staff of Israel, admitted the operation carried out in Al-Shifa hospital complex. In this regard, he explained the aim was to put pressure on Hamas despite Gazans denounced a fierce bombardment of civil population within the health facility just in the middle of the holy months of Ramadan. In turn, the Zionist military avoid mentioning civilian casualties, citing only that 50 Hamas members died during the attack. It should be noted that in November, Israel and the United States claimed to have evidence that the hospital was under Hamas command, but never proved it. According to official sources, the latest death toll stands at 32,360 Palestinians since the Zionist attacks began on October 7th. In this regard, the occupation army killed more than 13,000 children and 8,400 women, while wounded more than 74,096 people. On the other hand, the World Health Organization noted that about 360,000 residential units have been destroyed or damaged, in addition to 392 educational facilities, and only 12 of 35 hospitals are partially functioning. It must be noted that statistics says that on average every hour in Gaza, 15 people are killed and 6 of them are children. 35 people are wounded and 42 bombs are dropped and 12 buildings are destroyed. Israel occupation forces have begun a large-scale incursions into North Shams refugee camp in the occupied West Bank province of Tulkarm. Wednesday, imposing a tight siege on it. Wafa correspondent reported that as many as 50 Israeli military vehicles raided the Nur Shams refugee camp, declaring it a closed military zone prohibiting entry and exit of Palestinian citizens into and out of the camp. Additionally, Israel forces raided several homes in Jabal al-Salihin neighborhood of the camp. Meantime, Israeli drones target a site within the Al-Mashija neighborhood of the camp, the nature of which remains unknown due to the tide fish. Amidst players for help and ambulance access, as several injuries were reported. 12 civilians, including at least 2 children, were killed on Wednesday in Israeli airstrike that target residential homes in different areas in the northern and southern regions of the Gaza Strip. According to sources, Israeli warplanes bombed the Isa family home east of Rafah city in the southern Gaza Strip, killing 6 civilians and causing injuries to several others. An Israeli strike also targeted a house belonging to the Habush family west of Gaza City, resulting in the killing of a mother and her son. Israeli military drones also targeted a group of civilians near the Hamouda crossing, east of Shabalia, in the northern Gaza Strip, killing 3 civilians and injuring 10 others. The head of American diplomacy, Anthony Blinken, is in Saudi Arabia, and from there he announced this Thursday that his country submitted a draft resolution for an immediate ceasefire linked to the release of hostages to the United Nations Security Council. From Qatar, where he began his Middle East tour, he landed in Riyadh. There he met the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is also Prime Minister, and his ministers of the Foreign Affairs Faisal bin Farhan. Along the way, the Secretary of State expressed optimism about the approaching ceasefire. The proposal must be put to a vote, assured the head of diplomacy at a press conference. This is the first one Washington has produced because all the previous ones were rejected. On Thursday, authorities in Israel announced the port of Eilat is on the verge of closing, as they also state the dismissal of half of its workers, claiming that attacks by Yemeni rebels forces have left them near to shutting down operations. The announcement of the possible closure of one of the most important Israeli ports in northern Israel comes despite cooperation with Western forces seeking to confront the Houthi attacks. It is worth noting that Eilat is at the northern end of the Red Sea and has been one of the most affected by attacks by Yemeni forces in support of the Palestinian cause and against the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Let's take now a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok, TeleSUR English, where you will find news and different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Sudan, the war started last year. It is estimated to result in around 200,000 children dead of malnutrition in the upcoming weeks, one of the worst humanitarian disasters in the recent times. The country, which has already experienced the largest internal displacement crisis in the world, with 6.5 million people in pilgrimage within the territory, is experiencing a situation of acute food insecurity. The war that began almost a year ago between the current government and the head of the paramilitary forces has left thousands dead and wounded, and 18 million people facing severe food insecurity. Eden Mosorni, Director of Operations for the United Nations Office for Humanitarian Affairs, told the Security Council that the situation was a nightmare. Attorney Barry Pollack, who belongs to the legal team representing WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, said Wednesday that his legal team sees no signs of resolving the United States charge against Assange following the publication of Wall Street Journal report on exploring a guilty plea. The journal reports that the United States Justice Department is considering whether they allows Assange to plead guilty to a reduced charge of mishandling classified information. A Justice Department spokesman declined to comment on the report. The Wall Street Journal said that in recent months, Justice Department officials and Assange legal team have had preliminary talks about a plea deal, but that the discussions remain uncertain and the talks could fall apart. Assange is fighting extradition from Britain to the United States. In Spain, a court Wednesday authorized the release from jail of Brazilian football player Dani Alves in exchange for a bail of €1 million while appeals against the rape conviction are being resolved. It is ruling the Barcelona court granted Alves provisional release in exchange for the payment of €1 million bail and the handover of his Spanish and Brazilian passports. The Brazilian player is also required to remain in Spain and show up in court on a weekly basis. The court decision comes one day after Alves' lawyer claimed the 40-year-old footballer had already served a quarter of his sentence and deserved prison benefits. The court's ruling drew a furious response from the victim's lawyer, who denounced the decision as justice for the rich. The Russian government warned that France will suffer a humiliating defeat if it decides to send troops to Ukraine. The vice president of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, assured that eliminating French military personnel systematically would not be the most difficult task for the most important one. The vice president of the Security Council assured that the number of coffins delivered to France will make it impossible to hide the massive deaths of professional soldiers. In this regard, Medvedev warned that France will not be able to excuse itself by saying that the professional troops are working as mercenaries and asserted that the French military, once they enter Ukraine, will become full-fledged fighters as part of an interventionist contingent. And the National Meteorological Service of Argentina has raised the orange alert to red as a consequence of the storms that have hit the greater Buenos Aires. The floods caused by the storms have affected places like La Plata, Cava, Ezeiza, and Campo de Mayo, among others that add more than 14. The emergency situation forced to implement this alert, especially in the center and north of the province of Buenos Aires and the south of Córdoba, Santa Fe, and between rivers. According to the Weather Service, the alert involves an intensity of winds and hails. The strong storms that affected Buenos Aires this Wednesday and much of the province of the same name, they left a dead person and serious damage. International Day of Forests is celebrated on March 21st, a day dedicated to raising awareness about the importance of protecting these invaluable natural resources. This day was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly in 2012 as part of the global commitment to sustainable management, conservation, and development of all types of forests to ensure their survival. The choice of marking March 21st as World Forest Days coincides with the vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere and the autumnal equinox in the southern hemisphere, symbolizing natural change, rebirth, and renewal. Every March 21st is a global awareness day of Down syndrome, which has been officially observed by the United Nations since 2012. Down syndrome exists in no regions of the world. It's caused by the extra genetic material on chromosome 21 and has varying effects of learning styles, physical characteristics, or has adequate access to health care, early intervention programs, and inclusive education, as well as appropriate research, are essential for the growth and development of the individual. For World Down Syndrome Day 24th, we call for people around the world to end the stereotypes. We have a final short break coming up, but before, we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. In Venezuela begins the date on which presidential candidates will start to register with the National Electoral Council, CNE, to formalize their candidacy nomination process for the elections of July 2024. National Electoral Council announced on its X account that the presentation of nominations will begin on March 21st and will end on July 25th. The CNN continues stating that the members of the junior electoral bodies will be selected on March 20th. The announcement ends up saying that the electoral campaign would begin on July 4th and end on July 25th. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bolivia reported on Wednesday that it will close its border hours before the beginning of the National Population and Housing Census 2024. The closure will begin from midnight on March 22 and will extend until midnight on March 23, during which the important process will be carried out. The Foreign Office confirmed that the measure was coordinated with its neighbors of Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, and Peru. The population and housing census that already began this Wednesday with the registration of police and military is considered of vital importance by the plurinational government of Bolivia by providing crucial data for public policy planning and development in the country. The operation has all the guarantees.
Provision has been made for the necessary personnel required by the INE for the transfer of the material registered. for custody to be carried out in coordination with the INE to particularly distant places, communities, either by land, waterway, or if this is required, by air. Our armed forces are also available for all the work required by the INE for support in the operational part of the census.
In the Caribbean, the gangs that besieged Port-au-Prince, the capital of Haiti, have strengthened and spread their attacks to the exclusive zones and embassy headquarters. Meanwhile, negotiations to form a transitional government are proceeding very slowly. Petionville, an area of high standing where diplomatic missions are located, residents of foreigners and wealthy nationals, is shaken for more than 24 hours by shots and explosions in the streets of the capital, which seem to be left to their fate, bodies, and destruction. The United States has limited itself now after imposing the appointment of Ariel Henry and his subsequent resignation to evacuating as far as the Dominican Republic its nationals. In the United States, after the decision of the Court of Appeals of the Fifth Circuit that suspended the Texas SB4 law, its governor has decided to go against the decision. Greg Abbott, who confesses to having detained more than 41,000 migrants without the law, assured that he would continue with the arrest under the charge of breaking and entering. The offense may carry penalties of up to 20 years imprisonment. Additionally, he stated he will not stop the construction of the border wall, a mission entrusted to the National Guard, and that he will continue to deploy boys along the Rio Bravo. Three judges of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals suspended the notorious SB4 anti-immigrant law that allowed state judges to order the deportation of immigrants. We move on to the world sport. In Guatemala, the long-distance athlete Luis Grijalva returned to this country after 23 years in the United States to apply to compete in Paris with the blue and white colors that represents the Central American nation. In this sense, the runner arrived in the country accompanied by his parents to complete the procedure that he will grant him a permit to participate with the colors of his nation of origin in the Olympic Games of Paris 2024, where he already qualified. Grijalva is considered one of the Guatemala's best athletes in history and will compete in the 5,000 meter race. Luis Miguel Grijalva's family emigrated to the United States from Guatemala in 2000 when he was 1 year old. Before participating as a professional in international events, he achieved prestigious awards such as the California State Champion in the high school and secured multiples of American finals in Arizona State University. Grijalva, as a professional wearing the Guatemalan uniforms running the 500 meters competition, achieved a 12th place in the 2021 Olympic Games and 4th place in the 2022 and 2023 World Track and Field Championships. It's worth noting this athlete has the United States migrant status that requires special permits for travel outside the nation because DACA recipients are at risk of being denied re-entry. On Thursday, the Spanish Paralympic Committee informed that the 15th edition of the inclusive race will be held on May 26 in that nation. In this sense, organizers emphasize that the race aims to promote a more inclusive society and support the team of Paralympic athletic promise to facilitate access to sports for children with disabilities. The press release details that the event will have races for all ages, but the main attraction will be the 10-kilometer race with start and finish line in Goya Street and will cross some of the most emblematic points of downtown Madrid. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at TeleSUREnglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I am Irma Shelton. Thank you for watching.